What's up, guys? Knife review. Yay! And even better, a cheap knife review. Double yay. I get asked all the time, why don't you show, real cheap knives? Like really cheap knives. I mean, you may show some for 50 bucks, but, I don't got 50 bucks. Show me something that's $10. Where's the $6 knife reviews? Well, look, I review stuff generally that I like. Okay, that's another thing people say is, why don't you ever say anything bad about knives? Generally speaking, I'll review knives that I do like. I mean, I've been using them and I like them and I'll review them. Not always the case. Sometimes I do review knives that have been sent to me or, people have a specific interest in and ask for. In that case, I'll go out, the best I can, or if I come across a knife that I know people are interested in looking at, then I will try it out and review it. I don't necessarily like it on the spot. But this is one of those knives that are just extremely, extremely available, very common, very popular. Okay, so I wanted to review something that I don't necessarily love, but I want to give you a straight, honest review on a cheap knife. Okay, now for someone who's not really into knives, to be honest, to get a good knife in your hand and a cheap knife in your hand, it's really, really hard to understand the difference. Okay, now I'm going to say this is a cheap, crappy knife, right? But as I go through a review, and I'm being completely honest with you, there's not a whole lot I can explain as to exactly why it's not good. The biggest reason that I don't think it's a good knife is because it just does not stay sharp very long. And that I think is one of the most important things in a knife you're going to be actually using. Okay, but anyway, I'll get more into that later in the video. So this is the Smith & Wesson. You can see the little thing on the sheath there. It's the model SW990TA. Okay, this is the Tanto version. Happens to be a recurve, which in the pictures online you can't really tell that much, but if I hold it against something flat, you can see the space through there, hopefully. So that blade, you can see the tip is against the sheath, and you can see that there is a recurve in it. It is not flat. Okay, so right off the bat, it's going to be a little bit harder for an amateur to sharpen. Now this knife costs anywhere from $10 to $15 online. So someone who's buying a $10 or $15 knife, for the most part, not always, but for the most part, don't know how to sharpen their knives very well. So already this causes some kind of a problem for the average person. So once it does get dull, which will happen fairly quickly, they're just stuck with a dull knife because they don't know how to sharpen it. But anyway, yeah, we have a recurve Tanto blade. The blade steel is a 440C stainless. Now this does not say that 440C is a poor steel. The real problem here is because this is so cheap and mass produced, wherever these blades are coming from, the heat treatment on the blade itself is just very poorly done. Okay, it doesn't say that 440C is bad, or I'm not trying to imply that 440C is bad, because I absolutely love the steel. And even though we have all these great, new steels all the time, and stuff that blows all the old stuff out of the water, really, in reality, I mean, 440C, there's nothing wrong with it. A good heat-treated 440C has worked fine for me for many years, okay? As long as you know how to sharpen and maintain your knives, there shouldn't be a problem. But anyway, it's a 440C blade. It's just poorly heat-treated, in my opinion, because it dulled extremely fast. The coating on it here is a Teflon. Same stuff you have in your frying pans. Not a big deal. It will scratch with use, so expect that if you do get this knife and actually use it. See on the back here, it's kind of smudged, but there's the model. SW990TA. It is a fixed blade, as you can see. Bonus is that it's a full tang fixed blade. This has Zytel handle scales on it, which are they're smooth. There's nothing really going on with them except for the fact that they're glued in, okay, or press fitted in. I can't tell, but you can see there's no hardware or anything. You can't remove them if you want. I would imagine if this took a big impact, these would probably crack or break, and that the scales would fall out. If they are press fitted or if they kind of snap together, then maybe you can fix that, maybe not. But honestly, it's not a big deal. This is a fairly thin knife. Okay, I feel that the handle is a little bit short, even though it kind of looks like it fits in my hand. I mean, you got the deep finger choil up here for the pointer finger. Your middle two fingers rest down here, and then there's kind of a cutout for the pinky. Looks like it fits good, but leaves something left to be desired. I kind of want more handle here, something a little bit longer. Now this is sold as a neck knife. Okay, now in the sheath, you can see it in my hands here. I feel It just, for my personal experience, is that it's a little large for a neck knife. I like neck knives to be, you know, the full package in the sheath to be no longer than 4 inches. But that's just my personal preference. Some people like larger neck knives. For me, I feel a neck knife is just a go-to backup, okay? And that it should be fairly small for comfort. The overall size on this is 7 inches, okay, excluding the sheath. It's a 7-inch knife, 3.5-inch handle, 3.5-inch blade, so it is proportionate. But again, just a little large in my opinion. Weight on it is 3.3 ounces, which isn't that bad at all. It is, like I said, altogether it's a lightweight package. This one did not come with the ball and chain necklace, and I've read some things online where a lot of people did not get that. Okay, now these are mostly through eBay purchases, so it's not a huge deal and it's not something you can guarantee, but it's something I want to mention. If you are going to get this from eBay as opposed to, say, you know, Bud K, which, by the way, Bud K's version of this knife, it doesn't say Smith & Wesson on it. I'll put the link in the description box, but if you're interested in this knife, they sell it for $2.98. It just, instead of saying Smith & Wesson, it says Bud K. But it's the same knife, I promise you. So if you are interested in trying it, it's $3 plus shipping. So you're looking at less than $10 shipped for this knife. So I guess for that money, there's really nothing you can say whatsoever. But it's really hard to put down a knife that costs $3. Shouldn't really expect me much, you know, to begin with. But anyway, you know, overall, it's not, it won't hold an edge, but everything else about it's okay. It's not bad for the money, and that's what we really do, you know, or try to do in knife reviews, is say, all right, well, this is good, this is not so good, but here's the price. If this is a $100 knife, I would say it's horrific. It's the worst $100 knife in the world. But again, for the Smith & Wesson version, between like 10 and 15 bucks, you know, you kind of get what you pay for. It's not as bad as it could be, but for me, the biggest problem, and it is a problem, is that it just will not hold an edge. So you can see here, there's some skeletonizing in the blade itself, which is fine. It lightens up the knife a little bit, and you know, that's all good and dandy. But you know, once you start cutting into stuff that's fibrous, anything gross, I mean, if you do like cutting and stuff like that, you start gutting an animal, you certainly don't want anything like that, because you're going to get gunk and junk all up in there. Gunk and junk all up in there. That sounds stupid. But yeah, it's going to get all messy in there. You know, every single hole you have in your knife will eventually need to be cleaned, so just keep that in mind. But I think its real purpose is just a defensive knife. That's all. You get the thing brand new, and from the box you will need to sharpen it. At least I have. And it dulled immediately with cardboard. I'd say got maybe 20 or 30 good passes through cardboard before it started to struggle. I looked at it and it was just dull. It was just, you know, like a butter knife. So it will not hold an edge. But it will be effective as a neck knife for, say, self-defense. If you get the thing brand new out of the box and maybe strop it a couple times just to get a nice sharp edge on it, and then leave it. Don't use it. It's definitely not a utility knife in any manner. So if it's something you want to purchase and, say, use all the time as a tool, I would say it's a poor choice. Okay, that's why I say overall it's a crappy knife. But if your purpose for this knife is to have it around your neck, your neck, yeah. Anyone out there have a neck? If you wanted to purchase this to hang around your neck, you know, under a jacket or a shirt, and, you know, perhaps be there in case you need to save your life, then yeah, I guess it'll do its job. By the way, there's a little whistle in the sheath here, so when you're trying to, you know, cut the bad guy and it's not working, maybe you can whistle for help and call someone over who has a real knife. So that's kind of handy, and it does work. So anyway, yeah, it's not terrible. There is a nice snap up. You can see how the sheath works there. You basically have a bulb shape on the handle scales and a cutout here. Now it necks down just a little bit, so you need pressure to push past, but once it does, snaps in. It snaps nice. I don't think it'll ever be loose where it's going to fall out. However, once it is in there, it rattles. So if you're going to be active, you'll definitely let someone know that you got something around your neck. If they can't already see the huge bulge in your shirt, then they're going to definitely hear it. There's a little drainage hole right there in the sheath in case you go swimming with it or something. For me, I don't want to say it's a novelty knife because it does serve a purpose. It's just cheap for a reason. Okay, one of the reasons I don't usually review really cheap knives because again, I just don't use them. And in getting this knife and trying to use it, it wasn't very impressive. Just a poor heat treat. I'm going to blame it on. Completely poor heat treat. This does have a chisel ground blade. Okay, you can see it's full flat on the back side, and then you have your all your grinds on one side. Okay, so to sharpen this, you're going to want to sharpen your edge here, which is about a 20 degree edge or so, and then at the very end, maybe one pass on the opposing side, and then you're going to just want to strop it up. And like, I got this fairly sharp. I mean, I can easily slice paper with it once I was done sharpening it, but again, after some cardboard cutting, it just lost its edge completely. Okay, so not an effective tool, if you ask me. So a lot of people requested to do a knife review on some cheap knives. This is a pretty common one. I see a lot of people with this knife. I see a lot of companies and stores that carry it. My only suggestion is if you have any sort of interest in this knife whatsoever, bypass the Smith & Wesson name for 15 bucks and bypass eBay with that trouble because you might not even get the necklace, the chain that serves its purpose as a neck knife. I would just go right to Bud K. I'll throw the link in the bottom here. If you really want to, if you got 10 bucks sitting in your pocket and nothing to do with it, and you really want to check this knife out, you'll get it for less than $10 shipped to you. So you really can't beat that to try a new knife out. But yeah, it's it's nothing special. So anyway, going to review some other knives pretty soon. Have some other knife review videos, some good stuff. In the future, I will review more common, cheaper knives. I know there's a lot of people out there who like their Smith & Wesson folders, their Extreme Ops stuff, and all the other various Smith & Wesson, subdivisions. I hear good and bad things. I've had quite a few of them, to be honest. I'm not a huge fan of them, but that's just because I've used better knives. It doesn't necessarily mean that the $20 cheapo knife is crap. It certainly works for a lot of people out there. There's hundreds, if not thousands of people who have cheap knives all their life, and they really just don't know the difference. It's once you get something that's quality in your hand, it's hard to go back to something cheap. But trust me, when I was a kid, I was much younger. I didn't know what good was, and I was totally content and very happy with my $15, $20 knives. So if that works for you, that's totally cool. I will review them in the future. Not that I need to continue with the review, but I'll talk real quick about ergonomics. Besides the handle being small, I can tell you that the jimping on the finger choil and the spine here is very purposeful. It really is sharp enough where it works great. It feels really good, besides the handle being too short, in my opinion. The jimping feels great. My biggest problem is once I started getting in and cutting stuff, although the spine was fine, the sharper choil jimping, you could see it in my hand here. And I barely even gripped it. It's too aggressive. You can see the ridges right there. But it's just when you really want to use this for hard cutting chores, it's going to be very uncomfortable. All right, so it's not something that's a pleasure to use. And trust me, because the edge dulls so easily, you will be pushing very hard. So anyway, yeah, it is what it is, You get what you pay for. In most aspects of life, that's very true. In this case, it certainly reminds me as to why I might spend a little bit more on a knife as opposed to going the cheap route. But they do serve a purpose, and there are people out there who like them. So I just want to do a fair review on it. I think if the knife's cool, that's great. And if you're into the looks of the knife, I think that's cool too. We all are. None of us want an ugly knife. I mean, every knife that we have in our pockets or in our possession, we probably think looks good. That's why we have it. But when you go to take it out and use it and it doesn't work, what's the purpose? It's like having a sports car in your driveway that doesn't start. Yeah, it's impressive, but when you really get to have fun with it, you don't. So anyway, that's all. Just a little review on the Smith & Wesson neck knife that I see a lot of people have out there and possibly want to review. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I thank you for watching. You can look forward to more knife reviews in the very near future. Take it easy, guys.